Good evening. I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the Ferrisburg Planning Commission to order. Roll call, please.
Chairman Post,
Here.
Commissioner Holly,
Here.
Commissioner Schulberg,
Present.
Commissioner DeYoung, here, Commissioner Weber,
Here.
Commissioner Tuggle,
Here.
Commissioner Carlson.
Here. Let's see, has everyone had a chance to look at our agenda tonight?
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
we need to fix item number 10. Apportionment needs to be changed to appointment.
Thank you. Any other corrections or additions?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Consideration for approval, the April 3rd meeting minutes as printed. Any corrections or changes? Motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This is the time when we take public comments. Would anyone in the audience care to address the Planning Commission?
Good afternoon, Jason Larabelle, 16814 Virginia Avenue.
Nicole Larabelle, same address.
We're just here this evening to show our support for the change of this ordinance. We think that, by allowing neighbors to also hand out their produce at the small produce stands is a really positive direction. And, if in the future, if the city decides and reevaluates that it's a little too overbearing for citizens, then at that time, it can be readdressed. But as far as now, we support this ordinance change. We know that you guys have spent a lot of time, and City Council, Zoning Board of Appeals as well as city staff. And we really appreciate that. It's been something that we've spent a lot of time on as well. So we just wanted to say thank you, and we hope to be working well with you guys in the future.
Thank you. And, Roger, are you going to wait until the rebranding?
If we could, please, I brought with me resource person.
I see. Okay. That will close the public comments, and we'll open the discussion and take action, if appropriate, to recommend to City Council to adopt or not adopt an ordinance to amend the city code by amending Chapter 154 zoning to amend Section 3.280 to permit small-scale produce stands in a residential zoning district.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Discussion.
I would just like to say, Mr. Chairman, that we've all supported this, not anyone up here hasn't, and I think it's appropriate that we send it to council for final approval.
Okay. Call the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right. Thank you. All right. I wonder if the rebranding discussion might be shorter and quicker, and we might want to address that before we turn to the housing. Is that amenable? We have some strange people in the audience that I'd like to accommodate. So with your consent, we'll address rebranding at this time. And with the chair's prerogative, I'd like to ask Roger Jonas, our former chair. Roger, are you ready to address us?
I am.
Okay.
Craig, could we just have them sit and pass the mic back and forth between the two?
can do that, sure.
Between
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Still, former mayor.
Sure. As long as we move the podium out of the way so I can see.
Yeah, I'll move the podium.
I'm sitting behind you. Okay, accommodating the elderly is very important. We appreciate that. We are accessible. There's two of us here tonight. I didn't realize that I was going to have my resource person with me, but an old friend and somebody who's new to the city. But anyway, when it comes to you've got the rebranding issue on here, and I know that came up in the council meeting, and I read the account in the Tribune on that, how it came about. And my first reaction was, I don't like the word rebranding. It just has in my opinion, negative connotation. Like that's when you call all the unmarked cattle together and gather around a campfire, and you have little markings going on, or you want to change the name of your facial tissue to Kleenex or something. That to me, that's branding as opposed to imaging. And in my opinion, it's the imaging part that we may have a tweak from time to time and take that up. But anyway, going back of your Wayback Machine now, 1983, when this is Leon Still, who was mayor back then, and he was mayor for 3 terms. So, and a lot happened. That's when the TIF happened for downtown Pine Street corridor. He got that going. The whole thing changed down there substantially. So there's a lot of history here. Anyway, in 1983, we moved here in 81. In 83, I'd known Leon before we moved here. Anyway, I either volunteered or got appointed as chairman of a Ferrisburg image committee. And I had a whole file on that until about a year or so ago, and I finally tossed it. Didn't think I'd need it. But anyway, back then, yeah, I would use a compass and felt markers to make, because we didn't have computer graphics or anything. So I made a couple of sketches and turned them in to council with ideas. The typical blues, sand color, every logo that you'll see around either has a sunrise or sunset. And so there's a lot of them that are typical. And Leon said he wasn't exactly sure when this logo was adopted, but he does remember the Ottawa Peninsula it was his idea. But if you look at that logo, and in my opinion, it's a pretty classy looking logo. And what stands out is the sails on that sailboat are moving to the right, they're moving upward and forward. And there's something about that you may not see when you first look at it, but that's to me what it looks like. Now, the Ottawa Peninsula is something else, and that could be another discussion. And I think Leon would like to speak to that.
We didn't coordinate the coming together, but I'm delighted to see Roger here. As he mentioned, we go back many, many years. I think it was during my second bout as mayor. I was the 3rd mayor of the city after Dave Walborn, after Gene Babcock. And because of some business pressures, I stepped down from the council after that. But I missed being involved, so I came back and ran for council again, and then subsequently ran for mayor the second time around. So of the first, we lived here for 30 years in Ferrisburg, 67 to 97. And of those 30 years, I was involved with the council 17 years, and a number of other years on the planning commission. And when we started out, it was a pretty ragtag bunch, as you might imagine. The city is only 62 years old, you know. Had it not been for Clyde, I'm going to give you a little history lesson here. Clyde Olthoff, father of Jack Olthoff, grandfather of your fire chief now, caught wind that Grand Haven wanted to annex Ferrisburg. And so he went out and circulated petitions over a weekend. And unbeknownst to Grand Haven, he got Jacob Ponstein, the local district judge at that time, out of bed on Sunday night and filed his petitions on Sunday night to form a city called Ferrisburg. So when Grand Haven woke up and went in Monday morning to file their papers, it was too late. And the rest is history. It went to a vote and became a city. The reason the line is so jagged that it's not a straight line across was because of the need for population per square mile. There was a lot of open space. There was nothing out here beyond South Holiday Hills. There was nothing beyond Harbor Point. And so they had to do some jagged line drawing to keep it within the parameters that the state required to become a city. Once I got involved, and there was really our logo was a letterhead. There wasn't much to it. It was just City of Ferrisburg. I worked for IBM for a number of years, and this part of the country became known as the Great Lakes District. I went to a meeting in Detroit, and we all were given manuals, and lo and behold, that image was on the outside of the 3-ring binder. And I thought, my God, that looks sharp. You know, sailboat, looks like Western Michigan. It had all the IBM paraphernalia on it, but I came home with that and talked with Larry Sternberg at that time, who was our city manager, and said, Larry, I think we can make this into a logo. It looks pretty doggone sharp to me. But what slogan do we use? Well, there was a little bit, by this time, this was my second time around as mayor. By this time, there was a lot of chatter about Ferrisburg encompassing that part of the city of Grand Haven that is on the north side of the river. And we really thought, well, maybe that could happen. And, we kept using that annexation word, which was very unpopular. And of course, we needed Grand Haven's concurrence to do that, and they weren't about to do it, and it'll never happen now. But that's how the concept of a peninsula came about, because if that would have been included in Ferrisburg, it would have been a true peninsula going out to the North Channel and Lake Michigan on one side, the river on the other, and a peninsula. I would hope that you would not consider changing the basic logo. Just as Roger says to me, it's still fresh, it's still pristine, it still represents all the water around Ferrisburg, it represents all the activity on the lake adjoining Ferrisburg. I have no ownership of the Ottawa Peninsula slogan. That might be something you'd like to rehash and reconsider what might take its place. But my hope is that you wouldn't abandon the overall image. I think it's been established. Looks darn good to me yet. I won't ever tell anybody other than you 7 that it came from IBM, but that's where its roots were embedded. As you're well aware, I have another topic I'm going to divert to a little bit, and then I'll give it back to Roger. As you're well aware of, your 10th mayor was my son, and he passed away January 1st this year after some very unbelievable incidences, but basically from a major brain bleed. And with Craig's help, we and a number of people that donated towards it were placing a bench down along the river in William Montague Ferry Park. By the way, my daughter and I were the first ones to open up William Montague Ferry Park with my International Sea tractor and a drag, farm drag, because we took it over from the railroad and it was like this. And we went out there and Tracy picked up sticks and twigs and branches, and I dragged it till it got flat, and we put some grass seed on it, and that was our first rendition of a park, long before the pump station was there. It wasn't very pretty, but so many improvements have been made to it since, and I'm very proud that it's there. But Jeff's seat will be on the sidewalk facing the channel. And Craig is working on, and will get back with me on a plaque that will go by it. That said, once that is established, I hope to purchase a bench for Leon Still and put it someplace. This one won't be a memorial, not yet anyway. But I would be very proud to own a bench someplace, maybe on that same walkway. My point in bringing it up, I intend to do that, but there are a number of other mayors that might be interested in doing a similar kind of thing, or perhaps some of their heirs would do that. Dave Walborn, the second mayor of Ferrysburg, lives up on West Spring Lake Road. Dave is 90 years old, very incapacitated, sharp as a tack, but can't get around anymore. I think if I approach Dave, he might be quite interested in doing something for the same. My point is perhaps the Planning Commission might decide on where this project would be most appropriate for various benches within the city, recognizing the dozen or so mayors that have served the city over the past years. It might be kind of a unique walkway or area for Ferrysburg. And I intend to buy the second one and get it in place perhaps before the end of this year. But back to the logo, I hope you leave it where it's at, perhaps change the slogan on it, but then move forward. That's my comments. Thanks.
We obviously didn't coordinate this because I didn't realize Leon was going to talk longer than me, but not many people do. Anyway, just to put some wraps on this, I've got a suggestion, and that is Ottawa Peninsula becomes City of Parks. I think to still put our best foot forward. If you want something that says something, that's an attraction right there, and for all the right reasons. Not just because I thought of it, because of that. I think that's what we've evolved into. So that being said, I suggested that Gary form a subcommittee, a task group, if you will, made up of some planning commission members and a couple members from the public, and hash this thing over and look at it and come back with some recommendations that then you can take to council. But that would be my suggestion. So have at it. That's your history lesson for the next 2 sessions.
Thank you very much, both of you, for coming out tonight. It's a wealth of information. I'm sure everyone on the commission has enjoyed hearing your comments tonight. And so with that, I will turn to the discussion of the rebranding topic.
Mr. Chairman, I just felt like we needed a little more guidance from council about what they wanted. I'm a sailor, so I like the logo. I'm not really looking to change the logo. I could see something about the City of Parks, because that would give us another level of protection also. We have so many beautiful parks here, and that's going to bring in a lot of tourists. It's going to bring a lot. When we took the tour of the county park, they told me, I said, you ought to have a wedding venue here. They were like, well, we're thinking about it. So this is just going to get bigger and bigger. And we, from our survey, know how important green space is to our community. These 2 ladies saved the nature preserve. And I think this would, changing the title of our branding to City of Parks would give us another level of protection for those that might still think they'd like to sell the nature preserve, and there are people that do. But I think we just have to think a little bit about how we want to work that in with the logo. Maybe you could put something like City of Parks Kissed by the Water or something. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But I think we could incorporate it, and we should definitely not get any new signs if we're going to change the logos. I just think this logo is something that's associated with Ferrysburg, and the expense to go to change, even the wastebasket outside has a great big logo on it. Do we really want to go to the expense of changing that in these times? I think we need some more guidance. We need to think about it a little more.
I'd like to jump in with one comment. Roger sent us all an email similar to your comments tonight, Roger. And my initial reaction was to be supportive of forming just a task committee, as you suggested, Roger, of members of the public and members of this board. But since that time, Craig shared with us some information on what the city of Norton Shores has done. And basically the difference is that they hired a consultant to help them. And I think this is a big topic that a lot of people care about. So I would like to suggest to us that we take our time and not make a decision tonight, but that maybe Craig, maybe we could reach out and make an inquiry about what it would cost to hire a consultant for this kind of process. And we could compare that, the possibility of getting expert help with your suggestion, Roger, that perhaps we have another alternative of doing sort of a task force or subcommittee. But with that, I'd like to offer it to the rest of the commission for comment.
Yeah, this topic excites me, and I think it's interesting that you brought up, Roger, like the difference between rebranding and imaging. I've just been thinking updating. Like, there's a lot that we can do just honestly by changing a font to update a little bit. Like, I drive through Spring Lake every day, and they just have beautiful signs, and they're all updated. And I don't have a problem personally with the logo. I think that we should encompass the water and what we have, but just updating things. I don't, the Ottawa Peninsula, I mean, I've lived here my entire life and I have had no idea what the Ottawa Peninsula was. So I do see that we could change that. But yeah, I think this is a great, I'm glad that this is brought up. I think that we can do a little bit that will go a long way, and honestly just updating what we have. So that's my 2 cents.
I was looking at the company we had, the Norton Shores one that Craig sent us, and then looked at all the examples that they had, all of the ones that they had in Muskegon, a couple like nonprofits or public agencies they did support, and each one had a real defined problem or an underutilization of something. For example, there's a resource that they wanted more incorporated, but then they were led by basically those marketing companies that they were contracted with. They were almost like a facilitator when I was reading through it. So I think that even if we did go the route of hiring out, is we don't lose that personal, you don't lose the history, as long as the right people are speaking and present with whomever the marketing facilitator is. But yeah, they're just all marketing companies. I don't. But it was a defined problem, like what Regina says, or an underperformance. There was that perception, and that's the reason that those entities sought that service. And I don't know if, like, based on what I read from the Tribune and Song Council, I don't know if that problem was nearly defined well enough to meet like the fixed costs of replacing all the benches, replacing everything, paying for that service. So I would just want to more define what the perception of the problem is and how we could capitalize on that investment.
Thank you.
I kind of agree with that. Like, is there a problem? I mean, obviously, I think we could probably update it a little bit, but now after you hear the history, you know, like, that gives me different opinion as well. So I kind of like the aspect of having some input from some citizens as well, but also maybe some guidance from a professional if we have something that we want to attain from this.
Yeah, and just bouncing off what Regina said, so just getting some more guidance from council, because when we're talking about rebranding, imaging, it's not just the logo. Like, you can really update in the way that we communicate with the city. You know, we have a printed out letter that I just received in the mail. I've always said our social media component is maybe lacking. You know, I follow the Village of Spring Lake, and they just have got it going on. I think that they have consultants and things that they pay for, but they've got they have all of you can see a infographic of all of their meetings at the beginning of each month. And I feel like a social media presence would also really give us an identity. We have some good programs here, but I don't feel like it's very well advertised. Yeah, so there's more than just the logo that we can change to, if the problem is that we lack identity, I think we could update more than just the logo.
I hear from you like it's a marketing strategy versus a rebranding. Like how do you facilitate that and then be consistent with it? So it's not like, oh, X amount of dollars goes in, and then a year later, it's like, oh, the social media isn't as good. No, it's like, it has to be structured. And how do you get that structured plan in place?
Probably have someone additional on staff, I would think. I mean, but I don't know that we have the budget for that. I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, Regina asked about whether we had enough direction from council. I watched the discussion, and Jake Sturley brought up the topic, and there seemed to be support for considering it, and it was referred to planning for further review. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I do. But as I shared with you previously, I don't want to step on everyone's toes as the 800-pound gorilla in the room. So I let everyone else go. In our packet, with the agenda item was a synopsis of the rebranding as from what was stated at City Council. And I thought this was pretty spot on. My take on it was that City Council was looking at not only a rebranding, but a refreshing. And as Commissioner Weber stated, it could be something as simple as a font. That can make a dynamic change and really refresh things. So it could be something quite inexpensive, or we could go out and hire a consultant. That was something that was discussed at City Council. Whether or not that's the right direction or not, I'm not sure. But it could be something as simple as a font change or a change of the slogan. We're just coming off our master plan completion. We've got a pretty good sense of who we are and what our identity is. And it's just a matter of broadcasting that in a clear, concise way. And I think the City of Parks is our identity in terms of our strong suit. And so that's why I've been a big proponent of it ever since Roger brought it up. I think it's a winner, and it positions us different than being a tourist town. Grand Haven is more touristy, we're more resorty, more cottagey here. And in terms of the logo, I look at it and I love it. I love it because of the fact that it imparts motion. There's motion to it. It's not a dead logo. It's alive with water. Dunes are moving and the sailboats are moving. And the sails function as a pointer, and they're pointing up. Very upbeat. Colors, maybe the gray needs to go. I don't know. That's where somebody toying around with it, maybe a professional, might make a difference. City Council, I believe, is open to all ideas, whether it's a refreshing, whether it's just a font or a color or a logo. That's in a nutshell. Craig, did you have anything else to add from what?
I think you covered everything.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Craig, I didn't catch what you said.
Rich covered everything.
Chair, I'm in agreement with everything that has been said, and I do think that if we are considering changing our slogan to encapsulate that City of Parks, I think that it may be nice to just, gosh, I do have, but just a little bit of update, complement that perhaps. And in hindsight, I wish we, maybe could have talked about some of this on the front end of the master plan, but like Rich said, we have gotten a lot of information from the citizens that I think that we can be pretty confident in the kind of the direction of, the bedroom community, the city of Parks, all of those different things that are important to people. So I think I'm wide open. I'm open to keeping the logo. I'm open to refreshing the logo. But I do agree with Jordan as well that the marketing and all of those things, social media and just the communication to the residents, I think can all be worked into this as well.
Mr. Chair, I would also like to add that with Jake Sturley, who promoted this about the idea about the rebranding, I do think that like what Commissioner Weber had stated about Spring Lake, that Jake is presenting the idea of an overall fix, an overall rebranding, an overall re-imaging to reposition us, to make it overall. And that's where the consultant would come in to make it look all slick and professional like Spring Lake has. It's not just a logo change and change in letterhead. If you take a look at what City Council has done with our city goals graphically, and we've asked city staff to publish agenda highlights after our meetings to try to present, make it more graphical so that people can look at it in a social media sense to get a quick sense of what's going on in the city. And that's all part of the whole rebranding. I know that word didn't appeal to some people, but whether it's refreshing or rebranding to make it comprehensive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should also realize that we don't have big city media here. We don't have the Grand Rapids Press. Muskegon MLive is cutting its Lansing staff directors down. We're going to have to take this into our own hands with social media and communication ourselves, and we're going to have somebody that's willing to do that. And however we decide to purport this, we're going to have somebody that's talented in that, because we can't expect the media to come in every day and help us with that. It's not going to be like sending out press releases and news PSAs and things. So we're going to have to find somebody that is willing on staff to kind of take that under control.
Two things. One, Craig, I guess I would like to see maybe next month we could get some quotes for professional help. And I certainly also want to give the community at large an opportunity to weigh in. And so even though we may have a certain amount of consensus at the moment, I think this is something that shouldn't be rushed into, and I wouldn't want people to wake up and say, oh, I didn't even know this was being discussed. So I'd like us to take our time. It's an exciting topic. I think I applaud all the ideas that are being mentioned, but I would like to suggest we continue the discussion next month. Okay, are we amenable to that? And Roger, yes?
One final good comment, and that is when you talk about doing the refresh, it's not all at once. It's gradual. And when you see when the two major oil corporations merge into one called Marathon, they don't change the signs overnight. It's gradual, gradual, gradual. So you can tweak around the edges. You can do a lot of things with fonts now. You can do a lot of things like you're talking about internally with a website, for example, to communications that go out. It's amazing what pictures will add to a piece of communication. Pictures. And people like to see pictures. That gets their attention. So that's one thing. So there's lots of little things you can do gradually. You don't have to do them all at once. You don't have to change all your signs at once. You phase it in, because there's no budget for changing everything at once. So don't get caught up in that part of it. Get caught up, look at little pieces. You take it from there and see what consultant says.
And thank you. And I would also like to speak to the mayor. Two of us serve on the City of Ferrisburg Recreation Commission, and it's the Recreation Commission working with the city manager that has been reviewing a donation policy for people donating benches. Commissioner Weber and I are both on the, although Planning Commission would love to get its hands on that too, but we have a very good Recreation Commission that is, I think, the board that might look at placing more benches, especially if there's maybe a theme of mayors. It's a fascinating idea. So thank you for raising that suggestion, and I just mentioned that this is being talked about on the agenda with the Recreation Commission.
Yeah, and if you wanted to bring that to the Recreation Commission, I think it would be great for the rest of the commissioners to hear that. We meet the third Thursday of the month, 5:30 here. So yeah, if you wanted to come, that would be great. Yeah, I serve, and Gary currently is on. I think he is transitioning off of that, but yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
I think that concludes the rebranding discussion. And we'll turn to the work session on housing. David, would you like to open the discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So kind of to continue the momentum on the zoning ordinance implementation steps concerning housing from the master plan, prepared a memo addressing the 10 or so actions and my initial thoughts on scoping out each one and really beginning to wrap our heads around how we could accomplish each one of these housing tasks. So as you remember, the housing actions implement the master plan and supports the grant, which is the MSHDA Housing Readiness Incentive Grant. So the purpose of that was to increase housing supply and affordability in the city. And the 10 actions that we have in the memo were really based on the Michigan Zoning Reform Toolkit. So we had a couple different sessions where we really worked through those tools. We decided which ones were most appropriate for the city. But we really looked at more at, in the master plan, really a preliminary level for each one of those actions. And so as part of the zoning ordinance work, we really need to get more detail and more fine grain in our thinking about how we apply zoning regulations to allow for taller buildings or mixed use or multifamily in certain districts, or even redevelopment of historically platted areas. So how do we allow for duplexes in areas that typically had single family, or how can we fit in accessory dwelling units where they are none now? So we have to overall look at all of these actions and see how we can best incorporate these. And we may be looking at district by district. We may be looking at it neighborhood by neighborhood, or even block by block, based on some of these recommendations from the master plan. So, so for this evening, this is really just to kind of keep the momentum and get out some initial thoughts and comments on each of the actions. So maybe I can touch on each one and see what you have to add. And otherwise, I think we can continue on our next meetings. Maybe we could pick a couple priorities, or we could just start from the top. And so I think at the end of this discussion, we should decide how we want to tackle these. And then ultimately, if we want to adopt them all in one package, or if we want to pick a couple, adopt them, pick a couple more, have a second phase, and so on. So, as mentioned in the report, we have about a year left with our grant. So we should plan to get this all done within a year. I don't think it will take that long, but it will take an effort on all of our parts to review the actions and figure out the best way to implement them. So just everyone's had a chance, I'm sure, to read the memo, so I'll just make a couple brief points on each. The first set of actions, well, I kind of grouped actions 1 and 2. That was concerning multifamily housing and general commercial, service and core commercial, as well as mixed use in those same districts. So with this action 1 and 2, I think there's really an opportunity to capitalize on undeveloped land, undeveloped or underutilized land, especially in the downtown area. So there are some vacant parcels They're not on the vacant land use, the vacant property map that you received the other day. Those were 3 acres or more or larger. So in our downtown area, there's a lot of smaller parcels that are either vacant or underutilized. So we have areas that are zoned commercial, but there may be a small single-family house. I think long-term, you may see those the properties end up being combined, purchased, combined, and reconfigured for commercial buildings or multifamily or more intense downtown development. It's only a matter of time before that starts to happen. It will eventually. So I think there's a lot of underutilized or smaller vacant parcels downtown that can definitely be redeveloped. As mentioned in the reports, it's having multifamily or mixed use in these areas. It's a lower barrier to entry. So in other areas, if we were looking outside of downtown, we'd look at, say, multifamily. Well, we're going to consider that it's adjacency, a proximity to existing neighborhoods. Downtown is really between the waterfront there and 31. It's kind of its own separate pocket where you can take advantage of. You're not going to have the opposition to a multifamily building or a mixed-use building where you might in an area outside of downtown. So the barrier to entry for higher density housing and development is much lesser in a downtown area. So, and also I mentioned in the report, there's also going to be a spillover benefit of housing downtown. As we mentioned in the master planning process, that's really going to help create a 12-month year-round downtown area. So you have more folks living downtown. There's all of a sudden there's going to be more restaurants. There's going to be more services. There's going to be more retail. So I think it's going to make it more marketable for other types of non-residential uses with residential going downtown. And also I mentioned the idea of suburban retrofit too. So like for instance, the Leppings Plaza, you have a lot of pavement there, a lot of area that's still, well, some of it's stormwater, but I went out there today and that's very dry and it drains very well. So some of that area in the front, I really see as an opportunity for suburban retrofit, which I mentioned in the report as transforming of underutilized traditionally commercial developments in more suburban areas. So in this site, you have a lot of pavement. There's some green space up front. I can almost imagine townhouses or some lower 2-story, 3-story multifamily or mixed-use buildings toward the front, toward 174th, and then rear-loaded garages or access. So I think there's a lot of room there to really more efficiently use that property. And then further north, and at Van Wagner and 174th, we have I think one of the parcel. Well, the large parcel of the corner, the southeast, that's definitely on our vacant land use map. I want to say that's 8 acres or so. So you have an opportunity there. It's zone commercial. We could look at that for a commercial or mixed use or possibly even multifamily. You may not want to open up your entire commercial property like that for just solely residential, but maybe it's some sort of mixed use development. So that's certainly an opportunity there on your vacant property map. So I think with all of this, so we really need to consider the building size, design, and scale to make sure it fits. Especially downtown, I think we might have a little bit more opportunity to go taller, as we address later in the report. But when we look at properties like that or Leppings, we want to make sure maybe that the scale is more appropriate for more suburban context rather than downtown. So I think as we look at it, I mentioned in the report, it's not as easy as just saying residential is allowed in downtown or in general commercial. We would want to say, okay, buildings of this size and scale are permitted, and we want to make sure that the scale fits, and it's not something that's out of place with your vision for the community. Then going into action 3, we'll talk about this a little bit. Taller buildings in the core commercial zoning district, if incentivizing redevelopment in additional dwelling units. So, and this is something that Roger has mentioned a few times over the last few years. Could we go an extra story downtown? Right now we have a 35-foot height limitation. That just barely gets in a 3-story building with flat roof. I could see, you know, adding on an extra story and go up to 45 feet. You say you can allow for 4 stories if you're going to have a residential component to a mixed-use building, or even maybe we look at apartments downtown. Again, we still want to make sure that these buildings make sense and they fit the context of downtown, and we don't want them to be, you know, overpowering or over beyond what you see as a small, quaint downtown. And then on the waterfront side of things, you certainly have some large industrial buildings, warehouses, and so on. As those possibly redevelop over time, you also want to make sure that we open up the waterfronts a bit more than having buildings just take up the entire view of the water. So I think we want to be careful with how those buildings are designed with waterfront redevelopment. Mayor, did you jump in?
David, I just had a quick question. Are the actions in any particular order?
They are not in an order, or they're not prioritized. This is just the order as they were in the plan. So,
Okay.
could, like I said before, we can always decide if we want to bite off a couple of these at first, or just start from the top. I think we have our,
I
kind of our
did have a-
downtown area versus our residential area. So,
I did have a question for the city manager. Craig, how, can you find out how the fire chief would feel if we went up an additional story on action item number 3?
The aerial will go up to 4 stories, 40 feet.
So we'd be okay if we were to do something like that.
With the current equipment we have, yes.
I also have a question. Who owns the Leppings parking lot? Doesn't Leppings own that property?
I believe so.
So-
And again, what we are doing is, we're not exactly saying people need to do something